zu ziehen. Ja, das ist nicht gut drehen. Ja, nee, aber ist ja auch cool. Vielleicht mal schauen, was sich daraus entwickelt. So eine irgendwie beide Mischform. Ja, genau. Dann tanzen wir nur noch. Und dazu bewegen sich die Visuals.
Ja, aber finde ich auch ganz gut, dass ihr da so offen seid. Ich meine, viele Leute, die sich auf ein analoges Medium einschießen, die werden ja dann zu puristisch.
Bei uns ging es immer ums Tüfteln. Also so eigentlich so die Grenzen austesten und schauen, was noch so geht. Eigentlich wohin diese Reise gehen kann. So mit jedem neuen Impuls gibt es neue Ideen, neue Ansätze.
Alles draufschmeißen.
Ja.
Technologien, Software,
Ja.
Mechanik.
Ja.
Das ist nicht so meine Welt, die Mechanik.
Ich weiß es schon zu schätzen, aber. Eins, zwei. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 24th TouchDesigner Roundtable here at the Pop Kudamm. Maybe first of all, thank you all for coming again, or coming for the first time, and thank you to Pop Kudamm and the whole team here for inviting us and providing us with this luxurious location. We have three interesting presentations, but maybe first of all, you've all seen it. We have a little exhibition by Plositron. She's playing some of her works on the screens in the window and on the big welcoming screen. Thank you, Ploys, for on very short notice making that happen and providing the content. And I'm also super happy to introduce Magnificent Matter, here represented by Max and Alex. We've met after the last TouchDesigner Roundtable at Monopol. And we had a very nice conversation, finding our love to visuals and to live improvisation. And they're not working yet that much with TouchDesigner, but the whole exchange about what can live visuals be and why do we want to do that and what do we feel when we do it and so on was very, I would say it was crew love. And so I'm very happy that they accepted the invitation to present their work here. And without further ado, I will give the word to Magnificent Matter. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Max. This is Alex. We are Magnificent Matter, and as you've just heard, we didn't work too much with TouchDesigner yet, but since the last roundtable, we had some touch points, and later on, we also show you some implications, how we incorporate TouchDesigner in the future in our project. We do visuals with a microscope, purely analog, but we developed a setup over the time that has the potential to be run electronically, but first of all, we want to show you a little teaser so you get the context of our work a little better. So I'm going to show you this first. right. At first, I will just explain a little bit about our background and history of the whole project. During the first, no, it was the second lockdown, I guess. During winter 21, we were sitting at home, didn't really know what to do, and Alex already started working with a microscope as a hobby before. And I worked as a media designer in a creative agency, and we were thinking how we can put my camera onto the microscope. And this is actually an image from the first session we ever made. Better? Cool. Yeah, well, it was a truly magnificent experience, let's say. Also, because we never tried to go too much into the scientific aspect of microscopy, but rather use the tool as a, or explore the tool to create visuals on raves or exhibitions, and yeah, to just explore the potential. So in the beginning, we just put colors on the slides, tilted the microscope, holding it like a baby to create these kind of flows you've just seen, and also mixed it with some microorganisms or even bigger organisms, as you can see here. And this was a very emotional and life-changing experience, let's say, because when we first saw this, I mean, the microscopic world is just surrounding us all the time. It's like something when you wash your hands with after painting. This is basically what you can see under the microscope, like the interaction between different liquids with different viscosities, and then mixing it with organic life forms was something that really sparked our imagination, and we understood it as a great metaphor, because you dive into the microscopic world and experience like this cosmic imagery. And yeah, from this point, because like holding the microscope like this for hours it's intense, let's say. So we yeah, try to develop a setup over, I think, half a year or even longer, how we can get more control over what happens, also the duration of the clips, because at one point, when you hold the microscope for 30 seconds, all the liquids is just pouring onto the table. And then you have to refill it. So in the first image, that was actually our first approach to create flows of minutes. And on the second image, we're going to show you get more into detail in our current setup. We now are at a point where we can create seamless visuals for hours. It's just a matter of battery and if the camera overheats. With a 4K output, but there are also options to like extend this in the future. So I will give the word to Alex, who is telling more about the art, science, and engineering aspect.
Hello. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about some science and engineering aspects of the project. Yeah, here you see some impressions of our current setup. Yeah, we see some syringes with liquids, we see tubing, valves, and of course the microscope. Let's go into more detail. So what we basically do is microscopic liquid art. It's a little bit similar like those old school visuals, you know, maybe they came up maybe in the 60s with an overhead projector. So people put like liquids on the surface and projected it directly on a screen or a wall. So pretty neat stuff. What we do, or the main difference to our art, is that all this happens on a scale of 4 × 3 millimeters approximately. and is captured by a digital camera. All this happens inside a self-made glass sample. The glass sample contains an enclosed channel with up to 4 inputs at the moment, where liquids can go in, and 1 output, of course. And this sample is connected via tubing with our diving setup. The setup consists of, at the moment, it's 8 syringes filled with different liquids. These liquids can be inks, oils, soap, solvents. WD-40 is pretty nice. You can put lots of stuff in it, actually. And these liquids, they are driven by air pressure through tubing system towards the sample. And on their way, they go through a valve system where we can adjust mixture and velocity of the process. Yeah, and that's it. It's pretty simple, but effective. The other project I want to talk about is scanning and stitching. Yeah, this is not about live visuals, this is about still artworks. We motorized our microscope stage so we can move automatically or with a joystick over the sample. And we use this to shoot many, many pictures of an entire microscope slide, which overlap and cover it completely. So we can afterwards stitch it all together into one huge panorama, which can look like this, for example. And actually in this picture you can zoom far in without losing quality. It feels a little bit like Google Maps. It's pretty awesome. Here's another example. Yeah, those stitches, they can be printed on in sizes up to 10 times 6 meters with resolution 300 dpi. But we can even take this a step further by applying 3D printing technologies. So what we do, we can take, for example, a logo and print it on a microscope slide as height profile. Then we take the sample and apply colors and other stuff, make it pretty, and then again scan and stitch it. And the result is a huge artwork which contains the logo information. So basically the logo information reacts with the microscopic world and yeah, becomes one. So this can be printed, for example, on big billboards as commercial or whatever. But we can also do this with other graphics like portraits, texts, or any kind actually. Okay, Max is now taking over.
Yeah, I will show you some use cases because like in a session of, let's say, 8 hours of capturing material, we create so much content. And I mean, the engineering aspect of it was quite a lot of work, but now we developed a setup where we can just build everything up, pump up the microscope and just let it run and enjoy the show. And yeah, over the last, especially last year, I would say we got so many opportunities to implement our visual art into different, in different formats. And at first, I would like to show you a music video, which is not published yet, so you are the first ones to see it. For Dobrava Chotzer, she is a cellist, and we've also been to Psytrance festivals, which we're going to show later. But it's beautiful to see that it works with classical music and also Psytrance. So Enjoy. Yeah, here, as I just said, we've been at Modem Festival. I don't know if you've heard about it. They are really great visual artists, and they work with laser mapping, projection mapping, 3D mapping, sculptures, and it's like there are a lot of strings coming together, let's say. And yeah, our friend Fry Visuals invited us to showcase some of our clips on this statue. It's Jolene, it's like 10 meters high, let's say. And for next year, we plan to do a live session on the stage with the microscope and then running through. We don't know about the final setup yet. We're gonna make some tests. Also, since we got into touch with TouchDesigner now, this will probably also on our list for this. Yeah, to have a live session without any pre-recorded material. Then we created tour visuals for Pascal Schumacher. He was playing at Philharmonie Luxembourg or in Hamburg. We contributed with visuals for fashion shootings, for Garbage Festival and Bucht der TräumerInnen. We created this installation. There was a lot of welding work involved with projection mapping. Last year in May we did the release show of Robert Koch and Monum 4D Sound, which was also really inspiring because you have these endless flows where you can really dive into, and while you're watching it, it's always this feeling of, all right, this is happening live. It's generative art by nature, and this is, to me, it does something, to Alex, of course, too, but the feedback we usually get is that people are really soaked into the microscopic world. And as a last case, we want to show you we've been invited to also do a show at Monum a few weeks ago for a dance performance, and they also had the Dragon by LED Pulse over there, and yeah, and we did some projections on the dancers, but there was the idea, okay, how can we maybe even integrate it on the LED Pulse? And we didn't do it yet there, but we tried last week. And later on, we show you also a little image of the tests we did with Dan, who is going to present after us. Oops. Okay. Somehow it's not working. Then, sadly, okay, somehow we have some troubles, but then we just move on to the future outlook, and I will give the word to Alex again.
Yeah, I just want to quickly show you some new projects we're working on. First of all, we are doing some tests with AI generated visuals. So we just feed our data into an AI and let it dream new visuals for us. So here's a little example. Yeah, as you've seen, there are no flows because the AI interprets just every picture you give it as an independent frame, but it looks nice. Anyway, next thing we are working on is in collaboration with Philippe from Symbiotism. We are on the verge of motorizing our setup with step motors. So that means we can control every valve with a step motor and control it via TouchDesigner. That's the plan. That's our touching point. TouchDesigner will be able to control mixture and velocity. That's the plan for now. And finally, another collaboration with someone in here, Dan. We are planning a live show currently where we feed our live visuals via TouchDesigner into the Dragon and make it also audio reactive. But Dan will go into more details in his presentation later on. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you for your attention. Feel free to ask any questions. Yeah.
Stefan.
Really cool stuff. I'm curious, are you attaching a camera to the microscope with like a C mount or D mount?
In this case, our microscope is vintage research microscope, and it has this Trina Collar head, where you can look with your eyes, but have also a third tube going up. And I had a mount manufactured. We work with E-mount because we're working with Sony Alpha. Yeah.
What's the file size of the JPEG image? 10 meters wide?
Like 16 gig.
Okay.
It crashed some of our computers once in a while. Yeah, and also because now we are filming or taking pictures with a camera of 24 megapixels, so the higher we go, the bigger the resolution will be in the end. I think we also made one test image and the resolution was 40 times 13 meters, and the actual size of the slide is 76 times 26 millimeters. So it's like a huge enlargement. Yeah, that's it.
How much time does the scanning process take?
Sorry?
How long does the time take to scan like this big image?
The scanning maybe 15 minutes maybe.
Okay, so you have to have a stable environment, kind of, that it doesn't, or does it still like continue to, live in a way?
The stitches we make with still samples. It's another kind of sample without inputs and so on. You just have the sample and you apply something to it. Maybe you have to let it dry. There are different methods to make it stable. It's true, if you just put some colors and inks on it and start to stitch, to scan, it doesn't work because the little bubbles are still moving. You have to find a way to fix it.
Yeah, it's like a little canvas, let's say, and the first image or the first slide, I think we let it dry for around a month, but there was still some little movement in a way. So, but yeah, now we're going to fix it, or we're working on making it stable.
The last one, the red one I showed you, we did it 1 week ago, and this was fixated with UV resin. So I mixed the colors and materials with resin and then just hardened it, and I could stitch right away.
And if there are no questions anymore, then we would like to invite you to give us a follow. And yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for this inspiring talk. And I will use the opportunity because you're residents at Monopol, and we already seen the Dragon, and the Monopol is going to start in collaboration with LED Pulse. 2 residency programs. One is like an on-location residency program in, so let me tell you the exact dates. It's going to be on from August 1st to August 10th, and in parallel there's going to be a remote residency where people can remote into the Dragon and create work for that. And the aim is that to invite different audiovisual artists to create works for the volumetric display, and that these works shall be exhibited from August 11th to 13th. The whole thing is going to be kicked off with an introduction on July 31st. This is still in planning, that's why there's no official presentation materials. We're already just telling you that this is coming up. If you're interested to work with the volumetric display, combine it with audio, maybe lasers, maybe lights, there's an opportunity coming up. And it's going to be presented by Monopol. If you're interested, you can write to hi@monopol-berlin.com and already announce you're interested while the planning is still going on. And with these warm words, we go into the break, and we're going to be back with another presentation by Dan, whose name has been dropped already many times tonight. So we're going to see what that's all about at 9 o'clock. Until then, please mix and mingle and get to know each other. Thank you.
Ja, voll gerne. Also ja, so mit Beamer ist alles gar kein Problem. Also das war jetzt mehr so wirklich hochauflösende Billboards, dass du so mit der Nase davor stehst und dann auch noch die ganzen feinsten kleinen Details, aber mit. Ja. Ach so, nee, das war jetzt einfach nochmal so ein Mockup. Genau. Genau, nee, aber das wollen wir dann auch irgendwann mal drucken lassen. Ja, aber da basteln wir aber noch gerade.
good, thank you.
Yeah?
Perfect, thank you. Sorry. Is there sound coming in? Nice shirt. 1, 2. Nope. Yeah, cool. Thank you. plug the next week's course. I'm gonna plug next week's course.
What means plug?
Like, well, just mention.
So yeah.
Also, I mean, this ties in perfectly with William's yesterday's workshop.
Did you use any of that?
He used actually like quite a big portion of it.
Had the baby.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually
I
show.
was falling asleep. Actually.
I'm actually gonna show his examples. He built some nice, simple examples. So these are all his.
That's nice when things
Yeah.
intertwine.
Yeah, exactly. Also with the Magnificent Matter guys here, like it's.
Network.
Yeah. Uh huh.
Hello. Hello, and we are back with the next presentation. Here is the much mentioned Daniel Molnar, aka Function Store, who's a musician, a developer, an artist, and what is maybe interesting for lots of you, he's also developing tools for other artists to explore and to work with. And today he's going to present the premiere of his newest tool, which already had a pre-premiere in Biliam's course, and I'm very curious what it's going to be. So please give a round of applause for Mr. Function Store. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. Check, mic, 1, 2. Hey. Hello everyone, it's nice to see you all. Feedback, natural. Yeah, as Stefan said, I'm gonna showcase my newest tool, which is called Top to MIDI. It's a general purpose sonification tool, so you can input any kind of image or video and it will create sounds for you in terms of MIDI data, but I will dive deep. First, a few words about me. If you can see my screen. Oh, maybe I'm not sharing it actually, am I? I am. Okay, there we go. So just a few words about me so that you know where I'm coming from, what my background is. So I was born in Budapest, Hungary. I live here in Berlin. I have a master's in electrical engineering. Was a software developer for 7.5 years or so. Mainly embedded engineering, so microcontrollers and all that stuff. Also audio DSP for a few years. And then I got bored of it and found TouchDesigner, and I quit my job. And now I'm freelancing and enjoying it a lot. Just as an example, this was my desk as an embedded engineer. And this is, well, not my desk, but a recent project that we did together actually with Wieland and Stefan and a lovely team in Istanbul called Nerdworking. It was a nice experience. And how TouchDesigner came to my life, I've been doing music for a long time, playing in bands and producing. And of course I needed some visuals for my own songs. So I started playing around actually I played around in V4 like back in 2014 for a little bit, but I forgot about it. And then I got into After Effects and Winamp's Milk Drop 2. If anybody knows, I always drop this Milk Drop name because it's an amazing visual engine back from Winamp days. And yeah, then I discovered TouchDesigner and went full force doing it every day and not sleeping and all that. And now I do interactive installations, audio visuals, and system design. And I develop a lot of tools, so that's where today's presentation comes in. I develop all kinds of tools for artistic purposes. What I mean is like that you can generate something beautiful out of them, but I also develop tools that just help you with your workflow and your TouchDesigner practice. You know, it's a very bare bones system. TouchDesigner, it's a sandbox, so it's also missing some stuff that I find that it would be cool to be there. So I just implement them because you can do anything in TouchDesigner. And I want to also plug the upcoming in-session stream with derivative, where I'm going to talk a lot about my kind of problem-solving techniques and tools that you're also going to see today. For example, a big part of it is this little UI up here, this little toolbar. But there's also many other things. For example, I can just spoiler. I can put down, like, also inspired by Joseph, render network just like this, a whole render network, and I can have like different presets of noise top that I like. Anyway, this is coming on the 21st, and it's going to be available for everyone for free. So yeah, I hope you will use this stuff. But on to today's topic, it's sonification. This is the thing, this is the component that I built. And there's three main things to this. Maybe I will first show some examples, actually. So one kind of advanced that I built yesterday was this. Is there sound? Wieland? Oh wait, it's on my end, it's on my end. It's not on my end. 1 second. Now? Do you hear it? Yes. So, in this case, we have this line going all the way, and when circle hits the line, a certain sound displayed. If this rectangle hits the line, then another sound displayed. And I can have anything else than this circle, than this line here. It can be many lines, and now if any of these lines are hit, sound is generated. It can be displaced also. I can play around with the generators, so I can, make things go quicker. Things like this. Also, William just did a course, where is he, yesterday about data sonification, and he was using this tool also to showcase, to talk about some concepts. And here's some stuff that he did. I think I need to send this, yeah. And the thing about this tool that I'm gonna describe is that it's very general purpose. You just define your inputs well, and you can sonify any kind of system. You don't have to think about, you just have to think about the visuals, basically, and how you want to sonify them, and then everything else is done for you. So just to bring in some other examples from here, and how easy it is to change actually just the input of the system and have different outcomes. It also works with the camera. So yeah, I think this is kind of the big picture overview of it. This is very nice. There's a tool called GeoMusica, which is around this concept of what was it? Is this spiritual geometry or something? Anyway, so it's a tool built all around these kind of geometric patterns, and it's funny because somebody sent it to me like literally 2 days ago, and then we were talking about it with William, and he recreated kind of the same system with my tool. So it was a very cool moment. Something I forgot to mention. This is going to be on my Patreon on the lowest tier, so it's €6. You can pay just once and just forget me or whatever. But there's many other things there, so I think you will like to stay. Maybe, I hope. But yeah, let's get into how it kind of works and what you can do with it. Okay, we have plenty of time. So as I said, there's three main things. First is your top input is your image input, of course. So in this case, we have a simple, like this pattern. It's moving. And the other important input is the sampler. So the sampler can be any SOP or any top. In this case, this is a circle SOP that is used as a sampler. So as you can see, there's some thresholding on the image. And when the sampled points, so the points are defined by the sampler, which is a circle top again. So for example here, number 7, when the pixel under that sampler hits the threshold, it generates a tone, a MIDI tone. And what the 7 means is that, of course, every SOP has point indices. If we have a look here, like there's all these, oops, it's hard to see, I guess, but anyway, so there's these point definitions. And here, 0, or in this case a 1, means the lowest note in a MIDI scale, and I guess 20 would mean the highest note. So if the threshold is met at 0.1, it generates a low MIDI note. And yeah, the cool thing about this is that you can have any kind of input, so we can even have a still image. So I will stop the animation of this. So now we have a still image, and only our sampler is moving around and generating the MIDI notes. But of course, this can be also just still, and our image can be moving. So it's very flexible in how you trigger notes and how you define your musical data in this way. So this is one mode of operation, the index mode, which is what I call it. So this is threshold and SOP indices. Also, yeah, sorry, it works, of course, with a noise, for example, or any top. So let's just define a 5x5 noise here and use it as a sampler. And now we are just randomly scanning the image, kind of, and generating the MIDI data like that. So this is one mode, as I said, the index mode, and there's the value mode, which would be, instead of looking at the threshold of an image, it just looks at the pixel value. And if the pixel value at that point is, if it's black, it's a low note. If it's white, it's a high note, and everything in between. So I'm going to bring back my sampler, my circular one. Oops, yep. Cool. And in value mode, you have something. Okay. So now we're in value mode. It's a bit more busy. But you can also actually change how busy the triggers are. So I can define the frequency of the note triggers. So I can say that I only want a new note generated every 1 second. I can also define how long a note should be sustained at minimum. And things like that. There's a very, very detailed documentation about it, which is, everything is in here that you need to know if you want to use this system. And of course, the demo file. So there's trigger options to kind of have more control of how often the notes are generated and such things. Let's go back to index mode, or the threshold mode. And the heart of it is a scalar. I'm using a Python library called Mingus. And with that, you can define any scale mode, or not any, but I guess the Western scale modes. So we have major, minor, Lydian, what you have. So we can, just set natural minor, and we have a different set of notes. I can also change the key. I can type D, natural minor in the D key. Maybe I'll make it a bit quicker. And actually you can write here some cryptic notation like D sharp, flat, sharp, 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 flat, 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 which doesn't make any sense. But the MIDI library or the scale library under, it takes care of the notation also. I can change which octave it is, of course. And in a scale, you usually have like 8, 6, 12, whatever, how many notes. And now we have 20 samplers which can generate sound. So I can turn on extend mode, which would mean that the consequent notes would be extended to the next octave. So we are not just within one octave in a scale, but things will go higher in this case. You can define your own scales, which is, I think, super cool. It's just a table that you can add a new scale, like I just name it test, and just start typing notes here, whatever. And now it shows up, it shows up in our dropdown, and I can select this new scale as my scale. And something that I'm very, very excited about is the MIDI input capability of it. So I have a small MIDI keyboard here with me, and let me just see if there's data coming in. If I change the scale to MIDI scale mode, then I can turn on this MIDI scale learn. What's this error? Nothing. Then if I turn on this MIDI scale, then I can start pushing keys on my keyboard, and those keys will define the scale of the whole system. So I can just start inputting notes, and then I just define the scale, which now these points trigger. It also works in a live mode, so what it means is that it becomes a companion instrument, basically. So I can play chords here, and they will be played by the visuals at the same time. I can also define an octave offset. So I'm just gonna press some chords here. I'm gonna do something weird. So just imagine, hello. So just imagine having your external hardware synthesizer, generating its own thing. You're just playing your normal synthesizer. It's connected to the system. You generate the visuals, whatever, and then you send that MIDI data over here, and then the visual then generates more sound for you, and it will be all in the same key that you are playing at the time. And you can even offset the octave, as I said, so it doesn't clash with the other synthesizer in that sense. Yeah, you can randomize, of course, the scale. And you can output to MIDI or VST. I'm running the VST chop here. I'm using this very, very cool free plugin called Vital. It's super cool. And yeah, you can just output to any MIDI or through that to TD Ableton. So there's no direct connection to the TD Ableton. You have to do it yourself, but everything is there for you. What did I miss? Yeah, I talked about this, talked about the scales, output. Yep. I'm going to show some of the examples, I think. I didn't mention the key track lookup. So you can define a key track lookup, which means that you can say that the lower nodes, the lower MIDI nodes that are triggered are less velocity, and for example, now the higher nodes have a higher velocity. So this is just a small, to complete the whole MIDI circle, you can also define the velocity like this. And yeah, I'm going to show some of the examples in a bit more detail. So here I'm doing something, basically I'm just generating this kind of visual system of these dots and circles. And I'm only using, for the top to MIDI, I'm only using the position texture data. So these are actually my samplers, all these dots and circles. So I have a position data for the dots, I have position data for the dashes, or the circles, sorry, the squares. And then I have two top to MIDI instances here. And the top input is the lines that are actually going to trigger. So you can think about your visuals and your data in terms of like, what do you want the sampler to be and what do you want the sampled texture to be. And yeah, this can be anything. It's up to you. And what I'm doing here, actually, how they kind of like pop, like they become bigger. There's an output for the triggered nodes. So these are all the MIDI nodes that are triggered in a chop format. Actually also in a top format. So these are the triggered nodes. And I'm feeding this information back to my render. So you can see them becoming bigger. I'm feeding this information back somewhere here as the triggered dots. And I'm just using this data, like just doing some math on it and some lag to actually affect the scale of these points, so it becomes more alive, and then just putting some feedback on top of it and some other things. So also what is super exciting for me is the concept of auto-generative visuals and audio at the same time. So imagine a system where everything is generated by itself, the visual, the audio. You maybe just give one drop of input and then everything is handled by the system. So this is what I was trying to kind of build. Let's see if it works. So what's happening here? What's happening here is sometimes when everything is black, I analyze the whole texture. If everything goes to black, then this circle comes in, and this is kind of our seed, this is our drop. And after that, I take that away completely. And through this first kind of seed, from the top to MIDI, MIDI nodes are generated, which generate audio through the VST, which then are fed back as an input to just visualize the spectrum. And then the initial seed is taken away, and now everything is up to the visual system, how they trigger further nodes, and hopefully everything stays alive. So if, for example, if I just reduced the feedback here, eventually the system would kind of die or not generate so many nodes. But then this comes in and then it seeds the system again, kind of. So I'm exploring this kind of concept, how to go further with it. I think this is super interesting, also bringing in more analysis of the visuals. Maybe, you know, maybe if there's more red in the scene, maybe it means a minor scale. Maybe if it's, you know, yellow, maybe it's a Dorian scale or whatever. So you can kind of think about how you can analyze everything and make everything connected and intertwined. What is the time? Okay. I can show like kind of what's going inside the component, if you are interested. So first we start with the threshold to kind of prime our incoming visuals. So I do the thresholding, and there's this very handy thing I built. I haven't seen this technique before, to do the sampling of the texture using a very, very simple technique of just a remap. So we have our sampling points coming in. This is our sampling points of the circle, converted to tops, and this is our incoming texture. And with a simple remap, I can get the pixel values under these positions, the positions defined by this texture. And the big trick here is, oops, didn't want to do that. The big trick here is that you have to set the resolution source to UV image. I guess you could have it source image, but. So yeah, this is the sampling. There's also a very handy UI in the heart of it, where you can actually move these sampling points around, so you can also play around with this if you don't like the original positions. You can scale them down also, and you can also just reset back to the original. So this is the sampling part of it. And then actually comes the MIDI scaler, which is actually also another standalone component which you can use by itself, so you don't need all the sampling stuff. You can input any kind of chop data, which I also have here. It's just random data. So you can have any kind of input with this MIDI scaler. And yeah, that's where a lot of the magic happens. That's where the mapping modes are defined, if it's value or index-based. The value-based is a small script chop. There's the triggering options. So there's a few triggers here, like one trigger chop, and some other thing for the retrigger gate. There's the randomize, and then the bulk of it is the Python part of it, which uses the td-pip from VLAN, and unfortunately it doesn't work with Mac. So yeah, Mac users, sorry. This will only work on Windows, though you can do a workaround. If you actually manage to install Mingus manually through TouchDesigner, then you should be able to somehow use this. But yeah, here there's a lot of, like the extend mode of like going to the next octave is handled here. The custom scales are handled here. Lots of data priming, and the actual output is also happening here. The calling the MIDI out, the MIDI triggers, or the VST node triggers here. So if anybody wants to dive in, I try to make this as clean as possible. And yeah, I think that would be kind of it. I think we're also on time for the Q&A. So, yeah. I forgot to show something that I wanted to show. Of course, Magnificent Matter, we are working together on a new show. And apart from visualizing their beautiful visuals onto the Lat-Pulse Dragon, I also want to include generative sound to it, so kind of sonifying their visuals. which I'm also doing using the MIDI scaler. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking their blobs, and I do blob tracking on their blobs. And based on the size of the blobs, I trigger the MIDI notes. So this is kind of what's happening here. Wait. Yes. So this is a work in progress still, of course, but I think it's very exciting. I'm also controlling some of the VST parameters based on how busy the movement is of these things on the screen. So, yeah, I'm very excited to dig deeper into this concept. Okay, questions.
Hello. Can we get a quick demo of the webcam input?
On the webcam, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I once deployed it in a house party with a Kinect player index, and it was a big success. Yeah, this was also one of William's examples. Use this. Okay, and now I will do some thresholding on the image, I guess. And if I... So that's kind of it.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Check. Second question, sorry. Do you have anything in the tool for, you said you were mapping some parameters of the VST. Is there, I guess using the value mode, you kind of get a number which you can use as a CC value or maybe send out via OSC or something like that?
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly, you could do that. Even in index mode, you have the values as the output here. So even in index mode, you will get the sampled values, and you can use it however you want. But yeah, in the case of the Magnificent Matter collaboration, I'm using the optical flow and analyzing the vectors to affect some parameters.
Hello, mate. Fantastic. Thank you. Here's a really weird question. I know you're using Mingus for the pitch quantization. I've used that in Max. But have you thought about how to do microtonal stuff with it? So maybe get 64 notes in an octave and...
It came to my mind. So yeah, microtonal stuff is super interesting. Definitely, yeah. I think the thing is, you can output a chromatic scale and use it, and use the Ableton scaler or anything, in Ableton. So you can send this data to Ableton. You don't have to use the MIDI scaler specifically. So yeah, I think, I don't know about any microtonal Python libraries, but I know of microtonal.
It's got to be one. There's loads in Max, so
Okay, yeah. If you know one, just let me know.
Yeah, it could probably make some really weird tonal visuals that are driven from. That would be quite interesting for more weird people. But thank you, amazing.
Right.
So, any more weird questions from weird people?
One more thing for me. Next week is the Node Institute Depth and Tracking Sensors workshop, which I'm going to lead and talk about lots of intermediate Kinect topics and LiDAR and OGD and all kinds of sensor topics. So if you're interested, then feel free to tune in. Yeah, thank you. And I forget everything. So yeah, my Patreon or like my Instagram or whatever is at function.str. And yeah, this is my Instagram, and here you will find under my link tree my Patreon also. So this is going to be available there. As I said, €6, or you can also just buy me a beer here, and I will send it to you. Yep. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dan, also for mentioning the course next week, which I can only recommend. We're going to have a short break, and then we're going to be back with Markus Heckmann, who's going to talk about, I don't know, it's going to be a surprise, but we're very much looking forward to it. And that's going to be at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Nein, gibt's nicht. Habe ich nie von gehört.
Ich glaube, Vincent hat es irgendwann mal am Rande erwähnt und dann saß ich auch mal irgendwann so da und habe halt mal so ein bisschen durchgeguckt und war so, okay, direkt erstellen kann man sie nicht, aber wenn man eine Basecomp nimmt und den Typ der Basecomp auf Geometry Comp ändert, dann kriegt man sie rein tatsächlich.
Kannst du machen, ne? Ja. Okay, ja, es gibt ein paar Wege, wie man das machen kann, aber auf die Change Type habe ich natürlich nicht dran nachgedacht. Ja, interessant. Ja, ist in Ordnung. Ich meine, die ist ja nicht so, die ist ja nur versteckt, weil wir sie noch nicht fertig haben. Ich weiß gar nicht, wie das geht. Change Type?
Network Conf.
Sweet. Normalerweise gibt es noch einen anderen Befehl, wo man noch an andere Sachen rankommt, die auch schon Reveal machen sollen, irgendwie aus dem Screen nicht raus. Zu spät. Nächstes Mal.
And welcome back to the third talk of this 24th TouchDesigner Roundtable Berlin. And following a good tradition, Markus Heckmann is speaking. And we are very happy because until now, you know, Markus mostly had to remote in through Zoom. And only very occasionally we had the pleasure to have him in person. But things have changed because Markus lives in Berlin now. And so there's no more excuses. So maybe we have a little round of applause to welcome Markus to Berlin. Thank you for coming, Markus.
Thanks for having. Yeah, it's nice to be home, basically. Very happy about this, and very happy to not just visit the community, but be with the community like this. Really, and also like appreciate how much the Node Institute has done to build up this community over the couple last years. That's incredible from where it started and where it got to. So I'm gonna go just over like a little bit the things that are new in TouchDesigner and what you can expect since we are on the not necessarily the eve, but kind of the extended eve of an experimental version. Extended eve, I mean, it's still going to be a little while, but we're talking weeks, not months. So one thing that is already out and that's been published, this is kind of the blood and sweat work of Michel Didier. He has spent a lot of time working on the Touch Engine plugin for Unreal Engine. And this is now out with support for Unreal Engine 5.2.1. There's a bit of feedback. Maybe I go back a little bit, hey? Like this. Oh, I gotta go closer. Ah, okay. Interesting. What do we have there? It's a little bit simpler. The chop nodes are a little bit reworked in the whole thing so that you have more touch-centric access to things that you're used to, like channels by name or indices, samples, or channels by name or indices and samples, or the chops objects directly. So basically what they're trying to do is to bring this the workflow that you're used to in TouchDesigner when you're creating your component and then loading it into Touch Engine much closer to how you're working in TouchDesigner. The parameter nodes also have been reworked a bit. Previously, you had to use the get TouchDesigner input, set TouchDesigner input with these, well, as Michel puts it, confusing prefixes, /p, for example, for parameters and things like this. Now you have actually dedicated get TouchDesigner parameter, set TouchDesigner parameter nodes in the blueprints that you can use additionally to the settings parameter, the details panel in Unreal Engine. And also interesting is that the Touch Engine can be run in editor mode. So it doesn't have to be in the play mode, what is that called? That's the play in editor mode. It's actually playing in editor mode and in play in editor mode. And with that also comes a couple of new events and renames. From what I gathered, you're encouraged to use begin play and end play callbacks or events in Unreal Engine since they act in both those modes, in the play in editor and the editor mode. So we're really interested if people are working with Unreal and they want to try out the Touch Engine plugin in there, send us as much feedback as possible and let us know how it works, if it all makes sense to you. There is the link here to the GitHub repository where you can download the whole thing. And there's also a release article that Michelle made, I think. Yeah, no, I don't have internet, never mind. You can find that in the community section of the derivative.ca website. So that's available now. And looking a little bit into what's now upcoming with the experimental release is the long time coming oak release. I think I might have presented that last year during, yeah. Since then, some of you have been working with the oak D. I hope successfully. But from what we hear, it seems fairly successful. This is 3 operators essentially. There's the oak device shop, which is kind of the brain where you have to do a little bit of Python programming to set up your pipeline. And then an oak select shop, which basically receives the data from the oak, and the oak select top, which receives the texture data from the oak as well. For all of you who don't know the concept of the oak is essentially a little camera, looks like, yeah, very tiny, nice machined camera, can run on USB-C, can run on power over Ethernet, and it has kind of like you can say a machine learning coprocessor in there, which does all your model work for you on the camera. So you don't have to use your precious cycles on your video card to do, I don't know, skeleton tracking or people tracking or things like that. If you dig around a little bit on their website, the Luxonis website is here, the QR code here, then you can also see that they have a time of flight sensor that is on pre-order. So while currently, for example, the point clouds that the oak can generate come from a stereo image, they're not that high quality. There seems to be something in the making where we'll have a nice VGA resolution time of flight sensor that should produce really nice point clouds then as well. And the benefit of this camera literally is that with doing most of the processing on the camera, you can leave the image where on camera you don't even need that if you're just requiring the skeleton data or whatever data you're tracking or trying to figure out. Only that is being sent via the network or the USB-C, so it's much more lightweight. We also worked a bit on lasers, and always have to put a thank you out to Moritz Hilscher, who is somewhere here, I think, because he gives us great feedback and also pointers on what the bugs are and what we should improve on. So for now, what we have is a new laser device shop. This now combines what we previously had, the EtherDream, the Helios. The EtherDream has been updated to the version 3 as well, and now also ShowNet support. So much more access to a lot of different lasers now, while the AVB and the IDN support is still with the audio device out shop. And for the laser shop itself, we added some a lookup channel for the vertex hold time. So the vertex hold time is something where, depending on the direction that the laser has to move towards from one point to the other, so if you have steep angles, you might want to wait there a little bit longer. Like the steeper the angle, you might want to wait at the point a little bit longer so you can make sure that the laser actually reaches that point and then continues. And this was previously a linear interpolation, but now you have the option to actually have a lookup channel for that. A little bit nerdy, but interesting too, is this debug channel. Excuse me. There's all these different options on the laser shop that are like rather confusing. And when working with Eric Bonn, who is doing most of the development on the laser shop, then we always have to draw out what the laser is actually doing. I guess, Moritz, your workshop was last week, so whoever took the workshop might know what all of this is about. But there's all these pre-blanking on delay, post-blanking on delay, pre-blanking off delays, and you have to conceptualize this and you have to draw it out, basically. Now we added a debug channel, which outputs the state of the laser, essentially. What is the laser currently working on? And that really helps while trying to figure out where to optimize your settings in the laser chop itself. Then also interesting is this GLSL comp. So this is a panel component that's coming up which takes a pixel shader and draws that directly onto the screen. This means that you have pixel accurate shaders that are resolution independent, essentially. And the whole thing comes then also with functions that have panel interactions in them. So you get, like if you click the mouse or if your mouse is rolled over or something like this, all of these things come with the shader code. That's rather useful in, let's have a look here at that. That's rather useful when creating simple buttons where you don't have to have a whole top network and then interact with them via the panel directly, especially with the DPI changes or when you push this across various devices with various resolutions. A little bit more technical for the virtual reality studios out there, we added MOSES support. This was something that came from a few different directions. We had requests to add that in. I know Monomango was requesting that a while ago. This is basically a camera tracker which gives you the extrinsics and intrinsics of the camera, and with that you can position the virtual camera in space and also get the lens distortion from it. So there's also a MOSES top, which does the distortion of the image for you, referencing the MOSES chop. A couple other new NVIDIA-based operators, which I cannot show you because only support on Windows with 20, 30, and 40 series cards. My good old computer does not qualify. But anyway, that happens, whatever. But basically, yeah, this is a buddy track chop as well, which is nice, actually. It can track multiple buddies with 34 key points on the skeleton in 2D and 3D. And there's also a mode which is a little bit, hopefully a little bit lighter, which does the just people tracking, so bounding boxes on and positions on an image. As well as the NVIDIA upscaler. It goes up to 4 times, and it's actually not true here. It's not control detail enhancement, but it's more of a blend between the just a straight linear upscale or the model upscale. So you can kind of see where the sweet spot is between the two. Further on, we updated the Z operator. So this is the new SDK and now also includes buddy tracking. Really useful now. Not sure, I had lots of trouble with the engine comp previously, but with this update, it's really nice and stable. It runs very well. It has a couple niceties in there. For example, the obview parameter, so you can just specify an operator inside. So the node presents itself actually with a viewer. There's an asset path parameter. So the problem previously was when you have relative passes in the engine, for example, to get to audio files or something like this, then the question is, well, is this now relative to where you save the TOX file, or is this relative to your project where you run the engine? This is now an option, so you can choose between what and what. Project or component. The errors from the inside the component are reported on the outside. Super useful because it's a black box. You still cannot go inside, so it's useful to know on the outside what's actually going wrong on the inside. And there's a whole init start parameter page that's modeled after the timer chop, giving you a little bit more control over what should happen when a project starts up and when it's shutting down. if you're doing, this is a slide thing, but I like it anyway. The noise top has a slope toggle, so you can output the slope of noise for monochrome noise. Useful if you're dealing with like particle systems and things like that. You can do, get the slope for your forces out of there. Another nice thing I really like is the pulse job. It was always a problem creating pulses that are not in a regular pattern with the pulse chop. So like by default, I don't know who uses the pulse chop actually, if there's people who ever use it, or maybe not, yeah, sometimes, okay, good. It now has a second input, and the second input is the indice to where the pulse should be created. And this can become really useful when you're doing things I'll show you in a moment. Let's just create some random sample indices here. Just going to do a length of 600, amplitude of, no wait, not that many. We'll do 10, amplitude of 600 though, so that we can spread them out. And let's say this is like the indices of where you want to create a pulse. So when you plug that in, now you get these pulses on these points. When you're now trying to replace values in a channel at certain indices, this is perfect for this. Previously, you had to write a little script or something like this. Now it comes built in the whole thing. Comes with a couple other functions. I'm going to blame my computer for this because somehow this toggle does nothing, but I know that it did something on my home computer. So let me show that you hear what I'm using it for sometimes. I'm building, off and on, I'm building on this little interface here, which is a, I also forgot my mouse, so I cannot zoom. But it's a little interface which has these, what are they called? Like, you can specify basically these zones where your mouse starts hanging a little bit, so you can get to precise anchor points or something like this. Guides, yeah. And as I don't like scripting in general, but I do like things with nodes, you can build now with the pulse job these nice little node networks where actually every pulse becomes its own channel. You can output them as separate ones. And putting that all together and multiplying it a little bit and blah, 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 you get an lookup that you can use for things like this in your interface. That's just, this problem came up so many times that we felt like it's time to actually make the pulse shop work with that. We talked about this at the Roundtable 20. So I'm just going to refer to this. Jared and I were presenting the timecode that is now integrated everywhere. There's a timecode chop. A lot of the operators now have timecode built in. So a movie file in, for example, can give you timecode. A movie file in also can take timecode, so you can control it via that. A lot of the devices that are coming in come with timecode. And also the VST Jobs playhead, for example, can now be controlled with timecode. So you're going to find timecode pretty much in all different sections of TouchDesigner. On the Python side, we updated from 3.9.5 to 3.11. Now this is, well, it runs 10 to 60% faster. 1 times 2, much faster. It's hard to quantify in what areas that is basically, but in general you have a higher performance there. It comes with other niceties though. There is the, I think 3.10 has, what never existed in Python was the switch function, like that used. This is now the match. It's called match in Python, so that's there. And the other thing I think we mentioned is when you do exceptions, you can actually add more descriptive exceptions. That's also something that came with 3.11. What we added on the Python side, though, is sequential custom parameters. This might be interesting for a lot of you. This means basically, Control A, sure, cannot be removed. Let me clean this up with a base comp. There. We do have in a lot of operators now these sequential parameters. In olden times we had 30 constant values here. This is now a sequential parameter. But for other things like in the GLSL top, you would see whole sections of parameters that are sequential. And this is something that now also works with custom parameters. And it's fairly easy to create. So actually, let me see, because I have to also create a custom page here. Well, okay, sorry. P equals a dot. It would be nice to have like code completion, but that's for another day. And the custom page, I believe. Great, P dot. Now we're going to create a parameter. P1 is append int, and we'll just call this my int, and P2 will be a string or something like this. My string, and now what you can do, I have these two parameters here, and I want to make that sequential parameter. It's now fairly simple, but I have to cheat. It is create sequence, and then you just specify the end parameter, basically, which would be P2, and that makes a sequential parameter block out of this. That works in all cases. The other nice thing there's another way to control this with sequence start and sequence stop, or sequence end, but the create sequence is kind of, I find that a very nice way to do this. The other thing in parameters, and this was always annoying when you had custom parameters, if you want to reset parameters via your scripts, that was not really possible. And we have now, for this, we have all the methods there so that you can run this on a par class or a par group class, on a page class or an op class. So you can really specify what parameters should be reset to their default. And connected to this, this is also very useful, like what if your default should be meter_time.frame, then it is now possible to specify the default mode of your parameter, which could be the constant expression or bind expression, and also give it default expression or bind expression. And this is actually already implemented also in the customized component dialog in the component editor, so that you have this little C here where you can control if it should be a constant, an expression, or bind. And yeah, so then you just have to specify basically whatever you want to have in there. As a constant, when resetting the parameter, it will jump to that meter_time.frame. Reset meter_time.frame. So very useful to let people play around, but get your component back into the state that you wanted it to be, that you build it to be. This is, I'm coming to a close here. Oh wait, I had one more thing that's interesting for complex networks or when you're trying to externalize things as well. There is a new parameter here which similar to what or in the same realm as we talked about in the engine comp, but there's a relative file path behavior. And basically what happens is, again, if you specify text stats that might, or script operators that might read from disk inside your project, save this out as a relative thing, where should it read from when you bring it into a project? So this is now controllable as well. This makes it much more easy to move things around and keep things working, like keep your component folder in one place, your project folder in the other, and be able to move those components around. Yeah, we mentioned another thing as well. This is going to be fairly soon. It's our TD Bitwig component or collection of components, which will allow communication between Bitwig and TouchDesigner. It's a bidirectional communication as well. It's a lot of fun to play with, and yeah, interesting to see if there might be a couple of Bitwig users out there here as well, and would be interesting to see what you guys come up with then using these set of components. And last but not least, I'm gonna also announce that again. We're really happy to have Daniel MOLNAR next week at the in session on Friday, 8 p.m. Berlin time. And yeah, looking forward to talk with you about your developments, and we'll have Greg and Jared on the screen as well to kind of see how we can help you, or what input we can take from what you're doing. So yeah, that's it for this version or this iteration of the roundtable. Might speech here. Any questions? Oh, yeah. I let Stefan. Yeah.
Hi, thanks a lot. Quick question. The noise slope thing, very useful. I saw that there's blue in the slope, and I was asking myself, RGB, what is the blue channel doing? So does it support three-dimensional slopes? And if so, does it also support the second input of the noise top to get slope at positions?
It definitely does support the second input of it. It only does, good question, what does the blue do? Let's have a look at it. I feel like I remember what it did, but I don't quite actually. Oh, it's the original noise, I believe. It's the original noise, yeah. Was there another question?
If it supports the second input.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, second input works as well as a lookup into the noise field. Yep. Yeah. Wieland has a question.
So with more descriptive exceptions being part of, or the chance of making more descriptive exceptions for Python 3.11, are there any plans to add more descriptive exceptions to TD? Because right now I think it's always TD error, and there may be a set of 3 exceptions, which makes it quite hard sometimes to catch exceptions when working with TouchDesigner operators in Python.
I think that's part of a greater discussion that we're having, and Michelle is working on some parts that might lead to in these directions, so yeah.
Nice.
Party, I guess.
Thank you, Stefan, again.
Thank you, Markus. And thank you, lovely people, for coming. We are still welcome to hang out here. There's also like a backyard where there's seating cushions and carpets being laid out. So yeah, there's no need to go anywhere else. We can just keep here, stay here, stay here. And thank you for coming. We're going to go into a summer break, and we're going to come back most likely end of September. And in October, we're also going to start the winter season with, again, a 12-week beginner's course and lots of intermediate courses. And, well, thank you for everybody who was contributing to the success, either as a learner or as teacher. There's many instructors here. It was a bit of an experiment, and we're very happy that it was successful. And so we're happy to continue. We're maybe going to add a focus on design. So there's going to be some courses which are not only about this is how you use the tool, but maybe think a bit more about what do we actually do with the tool and why and how. And we're very excited to try that. There's going to be something coming from Diana Sebanescu and Helene Ullers on that end, and a lot of the popular courses are going to come back, and we're going to think about some new ones. But that's it with the advertising for now. Thank you for coming, and see you soon. Oh, we have to thank the supporter, yeah. Wieland. Thank you, guys. We even had a top supporter this time. Big shout out to Stavrinos. And yeah, thank you for supporting us. See you in September. Thank you.
Wenn du willst, kannst du ja Bescheid sagen. Ja. Up to you. Ach so, in Krakau, ich weiß nicht, ob Fisch essen die. Genau, die essen Fisch. Ja. Fischläden, den in Kreuzberg, den du
Ja,
gesagt
macht mir
hast.
keinen Stress. Also, ich glaube halt, für Ceviche muss halt ein bisschen frisch sein. Deshalb,
Oh ja, das sollte ordentlich frisch sein.
aber ich glaube, das ist schon frisch.
Ja. Nee, nur frisch, wenn es, oder nur,
Sonst sagen wir Julia, die soll noch welche kaufen, wenn ihr wirklich keinen findet.
nee, ist ganz gut für uns zu gucken.
Ja.
Genau. Dass wir wissen, wo wir frischen Fisch